Capitol Hoops here today in Potomac, Maryland with St. Andrews head coach Kevin Jones, continuing our series Beyond the X's and O's. Coach Jones, we appreciate the time today.
Thank you. I always appreciate Capitol Hoops anytime they're at our games and all the coverage you do. Much appreciated, man.
So we want to start off by getting a little background on yourself before we dig into the St. Andrews basketball situation. So if you can just, start us off by telling us who is Kevin Jones, give us a little background on yourself.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a Montgomery County guy, graduated from Northwest High School, then went to St. Mary's College of Maryland, Southern Maryland Division III school, kind of where I got my break into coaching with head coach Brock Cantrell, who took over the job as a Division I assistant from the University of Miami. Definitely kind of, I want to say, finagled me into helping him coach there, and that was really my break into coaching that kind of, really solidified that that's what I wanted to do with my life. So, from there, went to some other high schools in the area. Was a assistant at Bishop Ireton in Alexandria under head coach Mark Vincent. Would then go to Paul VI with Glenn Farello for a short stint, and then coached at Northwest High School, where I graduated from for a little bit, before going on to Churchill High School, where I worked with a college buddy of mine, Matt Miller, who's the current head coach at Goretti High School. And then at that point, during that tenure, I was given the opportunity to coach here at St. Andrews Episcopal School.
So you get the job at St. Andrews, but at the time, you were still working at Churchill? Tell us about that situation.
Yeah, so at the time, I was the assistant athletic director at Churchill High School, which is very close to St. Andrews, very close. So I was able to continue my job there and then coach basketball here. And I want to say it was after maybe my third year coaching at St. Andrews that I was blessed to have the opportunity to work here full time, where I've been the last 3 years as the associate director of admissions. So that's a dual role here as I'm doing that, and then our boys varsity basketball coach.
Tell me a little bit more about the role you have in the admissions department here. I know it's a pretty demanding job. What is your day-to-day operation?
Yeah, it's it's an awesome job. I love interacting with people. In that role, I'm able to go out to the other independent private schools at the middle school age, and meet with classes and answer questions and tell them a little bit about St. Andrews. Go to a lot of different fairs, and talk about St. Andrews and what our school can offer. Very involved in the interview process. I give tours on campus. And kind of like that first contact for families as they initiate contact with us about the school and helping them through the process, in addition to just answering any questions that they might have about the school.
How does that role, can you use that as the coach of the basketball team to help you out in getting to know families or getting to know kids? I mean, I'm sure there's some association with the two roles.
Right. Well, certainly, being in this role, I think is helpful as you guide families. If a family is interested in basketball, they'll have to go through an admissions process, and I think it is very helpful that I'm very familiar with that process and can guide families, through each step. Whereas maybe if I'm not in this role and I'm an outside coach, or I'm not as familiar with the admissions process myself, it's certainly, I would say, an advantage that I am in this position, and I'm very aware of what it entails to complete the steps in the process.
So if you're recruiting a kid, and we'll get a little more into recruiting a little later, but if you're recruiting, let's say, a player who's in the 8th grade, and you're kind of giving them your pitch as to why he should play for St. Andrews,
Right.
How do your role in admissions, I mean, can that be a tough situation if you're not sure if the kid can qualify? I mean,
well, what I would say is I probably have more applicants here at St. Andrews that have sought out the school on their own. They're looking at the school as an academic institution first, and then asking about basketball second. So, as a basketball coach, of course, I can tell them, about the program, our schedule, where guys have gone on to college, kind of like my philosophy as a coach. in my role as a basketball coach, you probably won't see the St. Andrews staff at, tons of events, through the fall, the spring, and the summer. Realistically, just because, not just our school, but a lot of independent schools in the area, it can be a tough situation. We're looking at the academics first. The academics are very demanding. Not for everyone. You know, I think I look at character as well. I mean, you're going to have challenges here academically, no matter how good of a student you are. But how are you going to handle that adversity? As a student, and then kind of as we get through those first two steps, then you maybe move on to basketball, and of course, being talented, doesn't hurt. So we kind of go about it in those steps. I would say with basketball really being the third step if I'm looking at the situation as a head basketball coach.
Before we dive into St. Andrews basketball, I want to get a little more background about yourself. Okay. I know that the best man at your wedding, one of your very good friends, Adrian Autry,
yes,
Syracuse
alum. Red.
I'm curious your relationship with him, how your relationship has come to where it is right now. Just give us a little background on that.
Yeah, go Orange. By the way, I'm sure you're a Syracuse guy. I'm sure I'll run into you at a game, maybe the ACC Big Ten Challenge this year against Maryland. But I got to know Red very early on in my coaching career. I was a young kid coming out of college, and I was JV head coach, varsity assistant at Bishop Ireton. And he was actually a varsity assistant at the time at Ireton. And, that's kind of was our first contact. Eventually, we would, go on to work with each other at Paul VI High School. And again, just remain like very close. That's a guy that I talk to every single day. Very happy for him, as he was just elevated to associate head coach under Coach Boeheim, and just somebody that I lean on. I definitely don't think I know everything, and I lean on guys that have much more experience than I do, coach at the same level I do or higher levels, and really try to lean on those guys and ask them advice. And Red, as you mentioned, best man at my wedding, someone I consider my best friend, and I definitely use him as a resource.
How often do you go up to Syracuse games? How often do you see him?
I see him a lot, actually. Definitely not as much when it starts snowing, because you know about that Syracuse winters are a little bit different. He always makes fun of me that you guys aren't really getting snow down there, but I get up to about 2 or 3 games a year. Certainly, if they play anybody locally, I'll definitely try to catch that. But I get up to about 2-3 games a year, and I'll get up there and play golf with Coach McNamara. Jerry's a good friend of mine as well now, and Kip Wellman, the director of basketball operations. So, I try to stay in touch with those guys pretty well.
So you just finished your 6th season at St. Andrews?
That is correct.
So you get the job at St. Andrews. Tell us a little bit about getting that job. You had no experience as a head coach.
Right.
St. Andrews was, I think it's fair to say, not a very good basketball program at the time. Mm-hmm. At the time you got the position,
right.
But just talk about the process of getting the job.
So I actually, at the time was an assistant at Churchill on their basketball staff and was the assistant athletic director, and we were doing pretty well at the time, at that program. And someone had said the St. Andrews job just opened up, maybe you'd be a good applicant for that. And I'll be completely honest with you, and I tell this story even to my St. Andrews family here. I hadn't heard of St. Andrews. I didn't know where St. Andrews was, so it was almost embarrassing when I found out that it was directly behind Churchill. I remember coming over. It was during the winter season and checking out a game just to see what it was like. And the people of St. Andrews have been very good to me. I interviewed with Al Hightower and Robert Kazaski, our head of school, who at the end of the day gave a 26, 27-year-old kid an opportunity and supported me along the way. Because it's one thing to have an opportunity without support. And they've been extremely supportive of Coach Jones and the basketball program here at St. Andrews. And obviously where we started to where we are now are 2 different places. But none of that is possible without them. I was able to assemble a very good staff, and any head coach will tell you, you're pretty much nothing without a good staff. Derek Harvey, one of the best workout guys, excellent basketball mind. Damian Burke, Another one of my assistants, who's a great motivator, really cares about the defensive side of the basketball. Phil Lipton, who does a little bit of everything as we're doing this interview. He's in the gym, controlling basketball camp right now. Does a lot of our online things, video. Cody Mayers, another, guy with a lot of promise in his coaching career. He's the head coach of the PYBL Montgomery team. He's our junior varsity coach, our varsity assistant, has a brilliant career ahead of him. So I was fortunate, not only to have support, from administration here, but was able to assemble a really good staff who could all be head coaches and will be head coaches at some point in their career. And, I think we've attracted some really good quality student athletes. Any of our players, that play for me will tell you Coach Jones only cares about communication, character, and applying effort. And if you have those three things, we can make any situation work. I think it's when you're lacking any of those three things that it becomes a little more difficult, to help people out of certain situations.
In your tenure here, have you had much of a turnover rate amongst the assistant coaches?
You know what? We haven't. I've had probably right now the same assistants, or maybe added someone, for going on about 4 or 5 years. We did have Brett Sullivan, who just got named the head boys basketball coach at TC Williams, who in my first year was here with me before accepting a job closer to home. But our staff, that's a big thing, the continuity of having the same guys around you, and helping put that staple in your program, and, the same message, not a lot of transition there, which I think has also been extremely helpful.
What do you attribute that to? I've talked to a lot of coaches throughout this series, and one of the things that's, for most schools, most assistant coaches want to be head coaches one day.
Right.
They're looking for a better opportunity, which you can't fault them for. But
Right.
what do you attribute the fact that you've had such continuity in your tenure here?
Right. And, you hope that your assistants, want to be head coaches, and I'll certainly do everything I can in my power to, help them live out that dream. But, I think it goes back beyond me to the community here at St. Andrews. It's a great place. For people that haven't been here, it's real. It's very supportive. It's awesome people. And when you're in a very good situation, I think most people, have the ability to recognize that. And, unless there's a really, really good opportunity out there that you can't pass up, you're in a pretty good place. And I feel the same way. As a head coach, I've had people approach me about certain opportunities, but, I think, I have the best job in this area. Certainly not just off facilities, but again, as you go back to support, as you go back to the people you're with, the same sports I feel like I have athletically, I know that our kids have them academically, and it's definitely one of those hidden gems in the area. So great job here.
Speaking of facility, you guys have one of the best facilities in the DMV. It's new. Tell us about the new facility.
Yeah, the new facility, it's nice. For anyone that's been in it, it's a $16 million state-of-the-art facility that's pretty up to date in technology in any aspect, and it's a nice building. And if anything, I tell our guys a lot that this is not normal. It's not normal to walk into 2 full-size gymnasiums like that. It's not normal to walk into that type of a fitness center, or the state-of-the-art training room, or having TVs in your team room, with music docks. That stuff's not normal. So our kids, are very humble, and I don't think they take that for granted, but I'm just really blessed with what we have. But it's a very nice building, and our architects and the team that helped kind of initiate that and work on some of the bells and whistles did an extremely good job.
How was that $16 million building funded? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, at any of the, I would say, independent or private schools, you have people that step up and certainly assist, with that process, and we were able to fund that, amongst our, community, and that's kind of how that works at this level.
How are you able to use the facility as a tool in the recruiting process?
Right. It's been, I'll be honest with you, it's been a lot easier in the sense for anyone that is very familiar with St. Andrews, saw our facility prior to the beautiful student center that we have now. And our pitch kind of early on was really on the academic side, and how good of a school that this is academically, and how you'll be challenged academically as a student, and how this community really embraces their graduates, and helps them beyond, school and, and certainly basketball. So, again, if you saw our facility prior, no one was coming to St. Andrews based on our facilities before. So to have what we have now, I think certainly for serious athletes, shows that, there is a commitment level to athletics. There is a commitment level, to basketball. We have a full-time strength coach that works with our team, 10 weeks prior to the start of our season, 3 days a week. We do have a full-time team doctor. We have a full-time athletic trainer. And, that building just, certainly, I would say reciprocates, some of the, those philosophies with where we are, as a school.
You're trying to fill your roster out. You've got a kid in middle school
Mm-hmm.
that is a D1 prospect,
Right.
and Anthony DeRusi, for example.
Mm-hmm.
How do
You don't get many Anthony DeRusi's coming
you don't,
through. So.
but a player of his caliber or
Right.
close to his caliber, how do you recruit a player like that? What do you do? How do you try to get him in the door?
Yeah, I mean, I know I've talked about academics a lot, but we'll go back, academics. This is school, all right? And, certainly you've got to be up for that challenge. If you're not a very serious student academically, or you don't value academics, this is not the right place for you. So that's the number one thing, which, as I alluded to earlier, you do not see Coach Jones or the rest of his staff, in a lot of gyms looking at a lot of guys until we've really done our research with non-basketball related information, as we start to look at GPAs and what courses that you're taking. And then again, I'm a big, kind of family guy. I like to get to know the families first. I think families are a big part of the program. Not only are you coaching the kid, you'll have a lot of interaction with the parents, and we try to do everything as a team here. And then certainly, we'll get to basketball. When we get to basketball, I think the opportunity that we present, and I heard one of my good buddies, Coach Singletary, we talk about this all the time over at Sidwell. When you come into a league like ours, you'll be asked to lead a lot earlier than some of the other, conferences in the area. It's an opportunity. You might have the chance to play right away, and you might be asked to lead a lot earlier. And some people can handle that, and some people can't. Being a leader and leading a team is a very big responsibility. So we're always looking for kids that want to lead, and, can shoulder some responsibility, and are big communicators, and want people to follow them, and they want to take that charge. So, that's what we're looking for. Again, that's not for everyone, but if you kind of check those boxes, we think we're, as good a fit as anyone in terms of what you can get as a student athlete here.
A phrase we hear a lot in basketball these days is trust the process.
Yeah.
Tell me about the process of St. Andrews basketball from the time you got the job to where it is right now.
Yeah, that's and again, I think when you say trust the process, I think that's not just for the student athlete. That's also for the coach. That's for the parents. I mean, this day and age, that's for the AAU coach. That's for the trainer. That's for all of the people along the way for the process. And to me, that just means that very simply, it is a process. And along the way, there will be some adversity, but you've got to trust it. For us, you're here as a student first, a basketball player second. We will do nothing that we don't think is the best thing for you. And again, as we have families buy in and students buy in, as long as they understand that, things normally go pretty smoothly.
How have you gotten St. Andrews to the point where it is? Because when you came in, basketball was, not very good, and right now you've got a very good team. What has gone into all of that?
Right. Support from administration, really good assistant coaches. We've been able to attract some really good student athletes. I would say kind of a combination of that. I'm pretty much a straight shooter when I sit down and talk to families. I think that's the best way. You've got to be open. You've got to communicate. And there's a lot of really good schools in this area, and families, have to sit down and ask themselves, what's the best fit, for my child. And I think once they figure that out, and if we're the best fit, we've done a good job, I think, really supporting, our student athletes, particularly our basketball players, myself as a coach. And that's really the process. It's not rocket science here. In terms of what it takes to be a good student, or what it takes to be a good basketball player. And as long as everyone's on that same page, the process is, could be a good one. If you want to be a college basketball player, I certainly think we can do that for you. I can't guarantee what level, but I think your work ethic certainly can increase those chances. And I think, amongst myself and our coaching staff, we have a really good network. We'll do all the things that you need to do. All of your resources are right here, as a student and an athlete, to really, dive into that process and get to where you want to be.
Talk a little bit more about the area. You just touched on it, but there are so many prestigious schools,
Yes.
so many private schools.
I think it's an advantage. I mean, you're in a hotbed area for basketball. Basketball is very important, to families, and it's very important to our coaching staff. So I think, as you are getting very serious student athletes, it's a win-win. Families are looking for really strong programs that are really committed, and we're looking for really strong and committed student athletes as well. So, I think it's a good fit, and as you mentioned, there's a lot of good schools in this area. So it's very important that as a family, you find the right fit. As you look at a roster, where does your child fit into that program. All very important things. So.
Talk to me a little bit about AAU basketball.
Yeah.
AAU has evolved into, some people think it's bigger than high school basketball, and it's just the level of where AAU basketball is so impactful on the landscape of basketball in general.
Correct.
Give me your thoughts on AAU.
Yeah, well, I think that AAU is an amazing tool, for young student athletes. Whereas in a fall we might get 40 or 50 coaches, come through over a 2 month or so span. You could get 300 coaches, over the course of one weekend at an AAU event. So, AAU, again, it gets a lot of negative, publicity at times. Looks like I got a call coming in right here. Coach Burke will have to wait there. But it gets a lot of bad publicity at times, but it doesn't have to be a bad thing. I think it's a great thing. If you use it the correct way, and it certainly, allows the opportunity for you to gain some exposure as a young player. I guess my advice to young players would be to, really work on your game, prior to some of these events, or really work on your game and find the right AAU team so that you can, garner the most exposure possibly on that team. I don't think that always matters what team you're on, but are you on a team where you're playing? Are you on a team that's going to put you in certain events, where coaches will be? And again, this comes back to finding that right fit, I would say.
How often are you going to see 7th and 8th grade AAU tournaments? Is that something that a tool you use to help you out in recruiting, or is that something that you don't put a lot of stock in?
No, I get out to events. We get a lot of word of mouth. As I said, in my role, as a coach, in my role as an admissions director, a lot of people contact you and let you know, hey, someone's playing, at this event at this time. And so certainly, I'll frequent some events. Again, not as many as people would assume, but certainly if you want to see, a potential student athlete, play the game. And you certainly want to respect families when they ask you to, to come out and observe, their child play. So, hey, we are definitely at those events for sure.
Talk to me a little bit about some of the players that you've coached here at St. Andrews. I'm curious, some of the guys who stick out to you. I know you haven't been here for that long of a time, but in your 6 seasons, who are some of the players that have really impacted the program and maybe gone on after St. Andrews to, impact college rosters?
Yeah, I've been fortunate to coach some really good players. I know 2 guys that certainly stand out. I think they were two of the first guys to take the leap of faith and kind of believe in what we were trying to do here at St. Andrews. And that would be Cedric McFadden and Marcus Atkinson, who I still get asked about them to this day. Where did those two little guards, end up playing? And Cedric and Marcus were, multiple. I think Ced was a 2-time All-MAC player. Marcus was a 3-time All-MAC player. Just really great ambassadors for what we were trying to do here, and they're both, playing at the Division II level, starting and doing quite well for themselves. Tyler Stewart was another young man, Division I, my first Division I player, and my tenure here at St. Andrews, playing at Binghamton University, should definitely make an impact this year on the roster. Most recently, obviously, Anthony DeRuggi. A lot of people know about Anthony, fine young man who, not only was a good basketball player, participated in the slam dunk national contest, on CBS during the Final Four weekend, but was, a big time artist and, really good student. But we've had a lot of guys. I mean, you could look at, the Miles Laws, who, was an all-conference player his senior year. George Mirasan, who, was playing basketball at Georgetown and studying pre-med. That had some good impacts there. We have, current guys right now that are all pretty good. I could think back to my first couple years or so, the Kevin Staffords, the Armand Zapanas, Lars Sorensens, guys that, Johnny Consor, guys that you might not have known, but really helped kind of put this program, on the map and really change the culture. So, I've been fortunate to have really good kids that are, here for school first, but, had a passion for basketball and really helped, transform this program here.
Talk to me about the league you guys play in. Competitive league, a lot of good players. Who would you say is the best player that you've ever coached against as a St. Andrews head coach?
Right. Well, I'll think. I remember when it might have been year 1 or year 2. I can't remember, but going against Josh Hart, that was a pretty good one because I'll never forget. The tenacity, the motor that he played with at his size, 6'5", really strong, attacked the basket, and just kept coming and kept coming and kept coming. He certainly would go towards the top of that list. And then most recently, Luka Garza, that, what a player, he was in the MAC, 6'10", 6'11", high motor, could shoot the ball from the three. Did a great job, around the basket. We always called him a vacuum in our scouting reports. Once a shot went up, you had better put a body on him because he did an awesome job, attacking the glass and rebounding the ball offensively. So those are two that stand out, but we've had some really good players in this league. I could sit here for probably 30, 40 minutes and just list off really good players. I think our league is really good. I try to advocate for our league all the time. I think we're, the most underrated league in this area. There's very good basketball. If you look at our 7 coaches in our league, really good basketball coaches, really good players. We have top 100 players in the country. Heck, we're going to have a kid from our league get drafted here, very shortly in the NBA draft. So it's a really good league, for sure. Mid-Atlantic Athletic Conference, and I think people are starting to take notice a little bit, but it's and just a very competitive league.
How about the relationship that you have with other coaches in the MAC and other players in the MAC?
Yeah. The relationship is really good. Like I said, I talked to probably Coach Singletary Sidwell more than the other coaches in our league, but Coach Preet at St. James, Coach Franklin at Potomac School, Coach Reed at Flint Hill, Coach Rizal Murray. I talk to all of those guys, and I have the utmost respect for them as coaches. I think if you respect the game and you respect basketball, you respect your opposition. And I think if anything, those guys have helped raise the bar for me as a coach, and they continuously make me work. To get better. Certainly with the players, I have the utmost respect for the players in the league as well, and I wish them, nothing but the best. Hopefully they don't have too good of a games when they play St. Andrews, but you're always rooting for those guys. I follow the players, not just at St. Andrews, but at the our peer schools when they graduate and they're playing at the college level. So I think that right now this time in our league is a really special time as our league is really I think starting to soar off and really take notice. So
The shot clock was just adopted in public
that's
schools
great.
in Maryland.
That's great.
What are your thoughts on the shot clock? And I'm curious if there's any other rules that you're a fan of or not a fan of in high school basketball.
Yeah, well, listen, I was happy to see that rule change in Maryland public school basketball because I think not having something as simple as a shot clock, is not really about basketball. Maybe it was a monetary thing. If it's really about the kids in basketball, you should have a shot clock. Most kids want to play college basketball, and if they're fortunate to have that opportunity, it's probably pretty good that you've played with a shot clock before you get to college. So I think that's an awesome rule. That's something that we've had in the MAC. We're fortunate that as rules change in college, we have some freedom and flexibility to approach our athletic directors, with these rules changes and try to have them implemented in our league as well. So I can't think of any other rules that kind of stand out because we adapt pretty quickly, as the rules change in our league.
Give me an experience coaching that sticks out. Maybe a technical foul you got, maybe a buzzer beater. Just give me some insight on some.
Man. Well, I mean, the most fond memory that really sticks out is it's got to be 2015 when we won the school's first ever MAC championship, and I remember maybe being up 6 or 7 with about 10 or so seconds left to go, and as a head coach, when you get that close to it, you don't really think that the game is over. So I'm still coaching it up and, still pretty animated. And my assistants are grabbing me like, Coach, relax, like we're going to win this game. So I'll never forget something like that and just seeing the support that we had for that game. And, just truly amazing, the support that you have at a place here like St. Andrews. That certainly sticks out. I can remember my first game coaching as well here at St. Andrews, being a little bit nervous. I tell people all the time, I'm living a dream. I was fortunate to play for some really good, I was a 3-sport athlete. I played football, basketball, and ran track. And I played for some coaches I wanted to be just like them. So being a high school coach and working in education has always been what I wanted to do. So I remember when I coached that first game, it was, my dream had began.
Have you ever picked up a technical foul coaching?
You know what? I picked up one technical foul, which is pretty good in 6 years. I think my assistants might have picked up more technical fouls than I have, but I picked up one, and it was, of course, I'm going to be biased here. I don't think it was a good one, but fortunately, my team rallied behind me there, and that technical didn't have much to do with the game. So
do you remember the details about it?
I remember saying something to a ref, and I don't really, for anyone that's ever seen me coach, I'm not as animated during a game. I'm way more animated in practice. And if you ask any of our players, a lot of people come up and say, wow, Coach Jones is really calm on the sidelines, during games, and their immediate response is, you don't see him in practice. Just because I believe that practice is a big, that's where you do all the coaching and teaching and really, hold kids highly accountable. When you get to the game, those kids aren't out there trying to make mistakes, so you've got to be super supportive and positive. And if someone's not getting it done, that's a quick sub, and you talk to them when they're on the bench, and you put them back in. But as for that technical, I don't remember the details too much, but I do remember it being in a playoff game, on the road. But like I said, it didn't impact the game, which is great because you would never want to see the game change on a technical.
You had 2 players this past season make the Capitol Classic main game.
Yes.
Talk about that, how great that is for the program and for those kids.
It's amazing. Dominic Doyle was selected as a Capitol Classic academic, All-American, and that's someone that was a captain for us. Really led our team. In terms of like being on time, knowing all the plays, encouraging his teammates, knocking down open shots, and just doing all the little things that you don't always get a chance to see on a stat sheet. And then Anthony DeRuggi, selected to the game as well. had an awesome season. You know, it was a 1,000-point scorer for his career with us, but had a really, really awesome season. And I couldn't be more proud of those guys. You know, when you see those guys come here on day one and you see them graduate. We just had graduation a couple of weeks ago, and you see those 8 seniors, man. That's what it's all about for me. I would say probably, 10 years ago, my coaching career was all about, wins and losses. As you get older and wiser and more mature, graduation probably trumps everything. That's the most special day, for you as a coach, and just seeing your players grow up and move on to that next chapter of their life and knowing that you impacted that. I can't say more about those 2 guys.
Any other 1,000-point scorers in your tenure here at St. Andrews besides Anthony?
Yes, Marcus Atkinson was a 1,000-point scorer as well, and he currently is St. Andrews' all-time leading scorer as we transition to the MAC.
All right, Coach Jones, we're going to put you on the spot here.
Okay,
If there's a pickup game today
yeah.
with every head coach in the area,
Whew.
who is your first pick?
Every head coach in the area. That's really tough. Let me think back to. Well, let's see. I went to college with Matt Miller. I don't know if he'd be the first pick, but he'd be one of the picks. Jim Ratt, head coach at Goretti. I'll definitely pick him up. Right here in the MAC, Coach Singletary. Played at Rice. I'd probably scoop him up. He's a feisty guy. I know he would play hard and compete. Those 2 come to mind. Let me think who else. My buddy Chris Line over at Whitman, he's a shooter at this age of our careers. If you have a guy in the gym that can make an open shot, you definitely want that guy in your team. That's 3. I don't know if I can get to field of 5, a team of 5 here, but that's 3 right there that come to mind.
All right. Last thing, Coach, and we appreciate the time. We appreciate the insight and the candid hoop talk.
Yeah.
But I just want to give you a platform. If there's anything that you think is important to talk about, I know you don't have an opportunity to talk to the masses, but if there's anything that you want to talk about, the floor is yours.
Well, first off, I'm going to say thank you to you and Capitol Hoops for giving me an opportunity and other coaches in this area a voice. People watch your channel, and whenever you come in the gym, everybody knows who you are, and without people like you, sometimes we don't always have the same voice. But I guess my message would be, to young players, and we talked about it a little bit, during this interview, and not just players, but families and even coaches, is really trust the process. It is very common, not just in sports, but in life in general, that, the first time, a little adversity hits, it's very, people are very quick to run, or to blame others, or to move on. You see a transfer list, not only just in college, but even now in high school, that is really, really big. And my message would really be, to families and players, and again, coaches, trust that process. Everything is not going to go perfectly. Everything is not going to always go to script. And to really dig in and, hold yourself accountable. I tell our guys all the time, when something doesn't go your way and something is, you don't think it's right, don't be the guy that's always pointing the finger outward. Look at yourself in the mirror and really ask yourself, what can I do to improve this situation? What am I not doing that could have improved this situation? And really hold yourself accountable. Don't point the finger, don't play the blame game. And, here on the eve of the NBA draft, you look at someone like a Markelle Fultz. I'm sure everybody's familiar with his story, but a young man that was, I believe, on the freshman team, then the JV team. Didn't play varsity till his junior year, but I'm sure thought could have been playing varsity, at that level quicker. And that kid's about to be the number 1 pick in the NBA drafts, and he stuck it out, and he dug in, and he worked harder, and he got better, and that would probably be my message,
All right, Kevin Jones, we appreciate the time as always. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
All right.